The story begins with Yaosin thinking that he's lonelier than a Discord moderator without his e-kittens, and that all his classmates make plans without even taking him into consideration. But on the good side, he doesn't get bullied by them. Apparently, Yaosin is an introvert and has nothing in common with those who actually have lives. As always, his classmates try to invite the downright baddie of their class named Nanami, but her friends help her make an excuse, causing Nanami to take a sigh of relief, while all Yaosin thinks of is how he was neglected once again. As he is about to leave school, Yaosin begins thinking of their plans and notices that he forgot his pencil case in the classroom. On the other hand, Nanami and her friends are playing games in the class, and when she loses, her friends order her to confess to a boy and go out with him for a month as a punishment. At the same time, Yaosin, who is in class, ends up hearing this conversation when all he wanted to do was retrieve his pencil case. Meanwhile, Nanami begins arguing that this kind of punishment is unacceptable, and Yaosin decides to head back home. Nanami's friend mentions that she just doesn't want to accept the punishment, to which she replies that playing with people's feelings in such a way is messed up. She further adds that confessing is something that should be taken more seriously. This makes her friend remind Nanami that she has never had a boyfriend, even though she's the one who had the most confession of any of them. Nanami lets her know that they all confessed to her while looking at her mommy milkers. Yaosin gets surprised to find out that Nanami has never dated anyone and wonders if this is the reason she sighed earlier. Nanami's friend further pressures her, saying that she might be attacked by some weirdo at this rate, and that even if they break up, that boy will surely tell stories about her honkers for generations to come. This conversation makes Yaosin think that if someone were to date an impregnable girl like Nanami, he'd get a lot of envious gazes. As her friends continue to pressure her, Nanami ends up accepting the punishment and gets told to declare her feelings to Yaosin. Little do they know that Yaosin ends up hearing everything, and after Nanami agrees to give it a try, he starts breaking into a cold sweat. When Nanami asks about how she should confess, her friends advise her to invite him to the back of the school. That night, Yaosin picks up his phone, and knowing that he doesn't have any friends in real life, he decides to count on his online friends. With that being said, he leaves a message in the group chat, asking his friend Baron. Surprisingly, Baron tells Yaosin to accept her feelings and go on a date with her, as this is a great chance for him to get used to girls. However, his other friend named Peach tells him to turn Nanami down. But Baron argues that a guy who turned down a popular girl is worse than a guy who gets dumped by her in the eyes of people. Baron further mentions that he should see this as a chance, as during the 1 month time he'd be dating Nanami, he should make her fall in love with him. And if he succeeds, he will have the choice to break up afterward or continue dating her. Yaosin questions Baron if he's eagerly anticipating this stuff, to which he agrees, asking Yaosin to keep him updated. The next day at school, Nanami asks Yaosin if he can spare her sometime after school, and he hesitantly agrees. He then begins thinking about Nanami, about her being a gal type who makes sure to unbutton her collar, so her milk valley is always on display. Her friendly personality makes every boy think that she likes them, and the number of misunderstood men continues to grow. Yaosin then wonders if someone like him declined her confession, how many people would be hostile towards him. Furthermore, he thinks about how her appearance can be deceiving and realizes that he's easily tempted by her as well. After classes end, the two of them finally meet on the backside of their school, and Nanami asks Yaosin if he has any idea what she's about to say. Yaosin lets her know that he has no idea, and if she wants to take his money, he doesn't have any. This statement kind of annoys her, but Nanami locks in nonetheless and prepares herself to finally confess. Yaosin remembers Baron's advice to not stare at her melons, but to look up instead. However, as soon as he looks up, he notices a student about to throw water out the window, and at the same time, Nanami ends up confessing. Without thinking much, he dashes towards her, grabs her shoulder and pushes her away, only to end up falling on top of Nanami. As expected, she freaks out and starts yelling, but stops when she sees him getting drenched, followed by the bucket falling on his head, knocking Yaosin unconscious. Later that day, Yaosin wakes up and finds himself in the nurse's office. At first, he wonders why he is in a place like this, but ends up remembering everything from him wanting to cover her and something heavy falling on him from above. Just then, Nanami appears, saying that she's glad Yaosin's awake. Yaosin begins apologizing to her for making her bring him to the infirmary, but Nanami tells him not to worry about her and asks if his injuries are okay. Yaosin lets her know that there's nothing to be concerned about and reassures her that he's perfectly fine. Nanami seems relieved after hearing this, and when Yaosin asks if she is okay, Nanami agrees, saying that it's all thanks to him. Following that, Yaosin gets up, telling Nanami that he's relieved that she wasn't hurt, causing Nanami to become beet red, and tells Yaosin to go back to bed. Yaosin also notices that his hairy chest is on display and pulls the blanket over his body. Afterward, Nanami compliments him for having an athletic body and reassures him that she didn't mean to ogle at his abs. Before long, the nurse arrives and lets them know that this is not a place to get freaky. Following that, she gives him a fresh uniform, telling Nanami to wait outside while he changes. The nurse then tells Yaosin to be grateful to Nanami as she has been looking after him since he was brought to the infirmary. After he's all dripped up, Nanami once again asks if he's okay, to which he agrees, thanking her for the help. Nanami also thanks him for keeping her safe and asks for his answer to her confession. Yaosin remembers that he rushed to save her before answering and remembers Baron's advice once again to look into her eyes. With that being said, he agrees to date her, which comes as a shock to Nanami, who at first couldn't believe it and fails to hide her excitement afterward. Furthermore, she asks Yaosin to call her by her first name, as they are a couple now, deciding to call him by his first name as well. Even though Yaosin doesn't feel comfortable addressing girls by their first name, he agrees and calls her name while extending his hand. Nanami shakes his hand and calls him by his first name with a big smile on her face. Even though Yaosin is lost in that smile of hers, he forces himself to remember that this is only a penalty for her game. Following that, he lets her know that it's a pleasure to go out with her, to which she agrees. But the two of them get interrupted by the school nurse, who congratulates the two of them, freaking both Yaosin and Nanami out. Furthermore, she advises them to stick to an appropriate relationship and always use the highest quality rubber. Nanami gets flustered hearing this, while Yaosin questions the nurse why she's talking like this out of the blue. She replies that the two of them need proper education as their hormones might take over, and she might end up popping out a baby or two. With that being said, the two of them are on their way home together, but are too nervous to say anything. Yaosin begins to wonder what he is supposed to talk about when he goes home together with a girl and ultimately begins conversing about the weather. However, Nanami stays silent, making Yaosin realize that she might be nervous as well. Eventually, she speaks out and suggests exchanging contact information. Yaosin agrees to do so but tells Nanami that he doesn't use those apps for obvious reasons, telling her that he only downloaded them to follow official game accounts and get free items. This causes Nanami to smirk, causing him to wonder if he said something funny, but the reason Nanami seems happy is because she's his first contact. Additionally, she wonders if he knows how to add new contacts, and after taking a while to figure it out, he manages to add her number. Additionally, Yaosin thought that she wouldn't be up for exchanging numbers, as this is only a dare, and thinks how he doesn't understand women at all. Before long, they arrive at the station and realize that they have to go opposite sides. After saying goodbye, Nanami leaves, while all Yaosin can think of is that she seemed a little sad despite the smile on her face. As soon as he reaches home, Yaosin instantly opens his Pentium PC and explains everything that happened to Baron and Peach. Baron questions if he's destined to be a superhero, but Yaosin replies that he had a hard time, which made him realize that he should ask for his advice. Baron lets him know that he doesn't approve of Yaosin relying on him and tells Yaosin to ask Nanami about the things she likes when he has nothing to talk about. However, Peach seems furious about the whole thing and mentions that this will never go well, asking Yaosin to break up before he gets hurt. Baron mentions that he just started dating, so they need to see what happens next, and suggests setting up a goal for this week. The goal Baron sets is for Yaosin to hold Nanami's hand by the end of the week. Yaosin questions if a handshake counts, but Baron wants him to hold her hand to and from school. As he starts stressing over this situation, Yaosin receives a message from Nanami. This comes as a shock to him, as he didn't expect to get a message from her on the first day. Turns out she wants to walk to school together from tomorrow, asking if he's up for meeting at the train station at 7:30 in the morning. As expected, the Virgin begins freaking out and wonders how he should respond. Deciding not to overcomplicate things, he ends up going straight to the point and agrees to meet up at 7:30. However, Yaosin then begins thinking that his reply might be extremely stiff and wonders what she will think of it. Luckily, she gives him a normal reply, causing Yaosin to get excited and tell Baron about it. He advises Yaosin to go to the station 30 minutes before the meeting time, telling him that he surely wants to see his girlfriend as soon as possible. This makes Yaosin realize that she really is his girlfriend, even if it's for a month. Baron further tells Yaosin to put her first if he needs her to like him, which makes Yaosin think if he can prioritize her over his AI waifu, and decides not to whine about it as there's no turning back. With that being said, he turns off his PC and begins thinking about how he will be going to school with Nanami tomorrow, completely unaware that she is doing the same thing as well. The next day, Yaosin arrives at the train station 1 hour before the meetup time to make sure that he doesn't make his girlfriend wait. But to his surprise, Nanami is already present there, which makes Yaosin wonder if he got the wrong time. Nonetheless, he calls out her name and asks if he made her wait, to which Nanami replies that he's earlier than she expected. With that being said, she greets him by saying good morning with a big smile on her face, making Yaosin remember that she is the girl who confessed to him. But he is also aware that it's only a punishment and that he shouldn't forget it. Following that, they both start walking towards the school together, and when Nanami asks the reason he came to the meetup spot so early, Yaosin lets her know that he was nervous because he was meeting a girl for the first time. However, Nanami is glad, as thanks to that, they were able to see each other quicker. Afterward, Yaosin notices that Nanami has braided her hair and figures that he has seen that hairstyle somewhere. Furthermore, he remembers Baron's advice to compliment Nanami, no matter how small of a change she makes. Therefore, he hesitantly lets her know that braided hair looks good on her. This comes as a surprise to her, and after asking if he really means it, Nanami thanks him, saying that she's happy to hear that. Apparently, she wanted to try this hairstyle for her, and when Yaosin questions how is it for him, Nanami shows him his display picture, saying that it's the same hairstyle as this character. She then asks if he likes that kind of hairstyle. Yaosin freaks out, knowing that his freakiness has been exposed. He then tries to reassure her that he has other interests as well, but she replies that it's okay to like it, and once again asks if her hairstyle looks cute. This time, Yaosin lets her know that she looks really cute, and she once again thanks him. Following that, Yaosin gets proud of himself for calling her cute on the perfect day. Soon after, Nanami suggests holding hands on the way, which shocks Yaosin, causing Nanami to think that he doesn't want to. But Yaosin lets her know that he does, and after wiping his slimy hands, he ends up grabbing Nanami's hand. However, Nanami begins laughing and tells him that he's doing a handshake. Following that, the two of them manage to hold hands the correct way. Every single student walking to school starts staring at the two of them. Nanami lets Yaosin know that everyone is talking about them, and Yaosin replies that they must be feeling sorry for Nanami for holding hands with a bottom-tier character. But Nanami doesn't appreciate this comment and tells Yaosin that it's not the reaction she wanted. Additionally, she reminds him that he is her boyfriend and that he looked really cool yesterday. While Yaosin begins to wonder if she's supposed to go this far for a punishment, Nanami suggests having a relationship on an equal footing. Ultimately, he apologizes to Nanami, and she does the same. Yaosin then starts to think about what kind of face Nanami would make if he told her that he knew about the punishment and ended up poking her cheeks. Nanami looks at him in shock and gets beet red, which causes Yaosin to panic as well. He then asks if it was unpleasant, but Nanami replies that he startled him. Before long, they enter the classroom, holding hands. Nanami instantly gets surrounded by her friends who begin congratulating her, which confuses Yaosin as they were the ones who came up with the punishment. Just then, their other classmates began asking why she was together with Yaosin. This makes Nanami hold Yaosin's arm once again and reveal that she confessed to Yaosin yesterday. Everyone gets shocked, but Nanami's friend makes them go away. Yaosin thanks both Hatsumi and Ayami, which enrages Nanami, who asks Yaosin why he's calling them by their first names when he called her by her family name. Hatsumi mentions that he most likely doesn't know their family names and properly introduces herself. Yaosin then apologizes for calling them by their names, while Hatsumi reminds Nanami that she has something to tell him. She then comes up to Yaosin and asks if he has planned anything for lunch. Following that, she reveals the two-person bento she made, asking if he'd like to eat it together. Later during lunchtime, the two of them meet up at the rooftop to eat lunch together, and Yaosin thanks her for going through all this trouble. Furthermore, he notices that everyone is staring at them and figures that he has to deal with it. Ultimately, he takes a bite of the lunch she made and compliments the taste. Nanami informs him that the onigiri are small because her hands are pretty small, reminding Yaosin that she made those onigiri for him using her fingers. After they are done eating, Yaosin once again praises her cooking, to which Nanami replies that this bento was pretty basic. Suddenly, his stomach begins growling, which makes Nanami apologize, saying that her bento must not be enough for a boy. To fill his black hole of a stomach, she tries hand-feeding some of her lunch, and after hesitating for a moment, Yaosin ends up taking a bite. Nanami then mentions that she often does this with Hatsumi and the others. Furthermore, she suggests going to buy a bento after school as he couldn't eat his fill, calling it an after-school date. After school ends, they both get ready to go buy a bento box for Yaosin. Nanami notices that Yaosin looks a bit down, and she wonders if he doesn't want to hold hands with a person like her. However, Yaosin reassures her that she's mistaken, and that someone like him is lucky to even touch a fine maiden like her. When Nanami asks if he's not forcing himself, Yaosin lets her know that he doesn't need to force himself, causing Nanami to smile brightly. Afterward, they arrive at the mall where Nanami picks a bento with flowers on it. But Yaosin mentions that it's a bit too cute for him, and begins searching for another bento when out of nowhere, Nanami comments on them looking like newlyweds. Surprised, Yaosin mentions that he thought so too, and Nanami replies that he doesn't need to force himself to agree. Yaosin then tells her that he is pretty happy to hear that, making Nanami fluster and hit him while calling him a tease. Ultimately, he ends up picking a bento box that he likes, but Nanami instantly snatches it from him and decides to go buy it. However, Yaosin stops her as he wants to pay, considering that he will be the one using the bento box. But Nanami straight up disagrees, letting him know she wants to do something for the one she loves and that there's no reason for her to let Yaosin pay. Yaosin argues, asking her to at least let him pay for the bento box as he doesn't want to look like a gold digger. In the end, Nanami agrees and returns him the bento box. After paying for it, he once again gives it back to Nanami, who mentions that it now feels like a present, catching Yaosin by surprise, who tells Nanami that he will be in her care tomorrow. On their way home, Nanami asks about the food he wants her to put in the bento, and when he chooses a hamburger, she questions if he eats peppers. Yaosin replies that he's too much of a wimp to eat spicy food. Nanami mentions that he will be eating them anyway as it's her cooking, later telling him that she's just joking. But Yaosin reassures her that if it's her cooking, he will eat anything, causing Nanami to crack up. After returning home, Yaosin once again gets on the game and tells everything that happened to Baron and Peach. Additionally, he mentions that Nanami promised to call him tonight, but he still wasn't able to tell her about the punishment game. But Baron mentions that she clearly doesn't care about the punishment game anymore and says that he didn't think he'd be able to go to school with Nanami, holding hands the same week. Yaosin comments that the punishment game was for her to get used to guys and wonders if she's using him as a simulation. Baron further tells Yaosin that he thought Nanami would surely tell him not to get carried away as she was forced to go out with him, making Yaosin tell him that she's not like that. This makes Baron realize that Yaosin is already down bad for her and almost gets hit by an attack that Peach makes in-game, later telling Yaosin that Nanami is just toying with him and he better break up with her. Baron tells Peach not to worry about it too much and asks Yaosin if he will give her his thanks for the meal. Yaosin replies that even though he thanked her, he still wanted to pay for the materials she'll be putting, but Nanami refused. Baron then suggests giving her sweets to return the favor, which is something Yaosin seems to like, and mentions how pathetic it is to realize this after being told by someone else. Baron then gets an idea for his next objective and tells Yaosin to ask her on a date. This freaks him out as asking a girl on a date is almost impossible for someone who had zero female interaction before Nanami. Baron tells him not to stress out and just take her to see a movie for something. Yaosin also realizes that they are not really equal in this relationship and wants to be equal considering it's for a punishment game. Additionally, Baron advises him to ask for her hobbies as he can use it as a reference when picking a movie. Ultimately, Yaosin decides to complete this objective and gets to ask her when she'll call her at night. Before long, he receives a call from Nanami, who apologizes for calling at such an hour. Furthermore, she wonders if she said anything weird as it was her first time going out with a boy. But Yaosin reassures her that he enjoyed everything they did while getting turned on at the same time. Nanami further says that he seemed pretty calm as compared to her, who was going around in circles. But Yaosin lets her know that's not the case and mentions that he was even thinking of thanking her. With that being said, he ends up inviting her to go to the movies this Saturday, only to be told that she already promised to watch a movie with Hatsumi and the others. This statement brings the poor lad to his knees, but even though he is feeling crushed right now, Yaosin doesn't give up and asks if she's free on Sunday. Nanami replies that she should be putting more effort when making his bento and agrees to go out with him this Sunday. Yaosin lets out a creepy smile, saying that he can't wait to hear about what she likes tomorrow, unaware that Nanami is even more flustered than he could imagine. After the call ends, Nanami realizes that she's not very good at talking to boys as her heartbeat was going crazy all the way through. She then begins rolling around in excitement, realizing that she's going to be all fluffy tomorrow. Furthermore, she begins thinking how Yaosin not only arrived early to meet up with her, but also complimented her hairstyle and called her cute. She then thinks about everyone's reaction to her dating Yaosin and her being nervous while giving him the bento as Nanami wasn't sure if he'll enjoy the things she cooked. The things that happened during lunch start appearing in her mind, which makes her regret everything she did, as attracting everyone's attention is really embarrassing. Nanami then wonders if hand feeding him counts as an indirect kiss, and realizing that she just noticed it, Nanami gets even more embarrassed. However, she is aware that sooner or later they might end up locking lips with each other, but figures that it's impossible as an indirect kiss is already too embarrassing for her. They have been together for barely 2 days, which makes her think about what things they might do tomorrow, but decides to distract herself by preparing his bento. Later in the kitchen, Nanami decides to give it her all and starts preparing the ingredients. While making the bento, she thinks that Yaosin is normally quiet at school, but can be unexpectedly proactive at times. Even though he easily gets flustered, Yaosin didn't give up when she told him that she was busy on Saturday. She didn't expect him to invite her on Sunday instead, as he's not the type to do such a thing, which makes her even more happy. She further thinks about how she wants to talk to him about a lot of things and wants to know him even better. Additionally, she wants him to eat her freshly made cooking as well, and just thinking about her going to his house someday makes her nervous. She is aware that if they kept going out, there would be a lot of things for them to do, like showing off those 2 cannonballs on her chest, going to some kind of festival together, spending Halloween, Christmas, and Valentine together. There are many things she'd like to try and knows that a month is too short for her to make things progress. Nanami is aware that Hatsumi told her to keep going out with the boy while she's getting used to it, and even though she was really anxious at first, now she'd like to give it a try. Apparently, Hatsumi told Nanami that she's easy to deal with, so they wanted her to go out with a virgin like Yaosin instead of a playboy. This makes Nanami wonder if she's really that easy, and starts thinking that if Yaosin even finds out that she confessed to him because of a punishment game, he'll start hating her. Nonetheless, she is aware that she is always thinking about Yaosin, and as she doesn't want him to be depressed, she needs to keep changing things regularly. However, as Yaosin isn't here, she can't really get his opinion, so there is only one thing left for her to do. That is to try her best and make Yaosin fall deeply in love with him. She plans on getting him using his stomach and ultimately kiss him someday. As expected, she gets embarrassed by the thought of kissing once again and decides to be ready for it at least. Furthermore, she is now starting to think that Yaosin might forgive her, even if he finds out about the punishment game. Before that happens, Nanami wants to make him completely fall in love with her. As she doesn't have the courage to reveal the truth just yet, she was to at least put her all into tomorrow's bento. The next day, Yaosin arrives at the meetup spot 30 minutes early and figures that Nanami doesn't have to wait this way. Just then, someone pokes his cheek, and that person turns out to be Nanami, who was already waiting for him. He lets her know that she surprised him, to which Nanami replies that he surprised her yesterday, and with this, they are now even. Yaosin then mentions that she's pretty early, to which Nanami replies that she came early because she wanted to see Yaosin apologize for being late. Following that, he notices that she had ponytails today, and lets her know that this hairstyle looks great on her, and manages to call her cute once again. Nanami thanks him and shows her gratitude by letting him hold her hand and eat the bento she made. Elsewhere, at school, all the desperate girls are gathered around a boy, offering him water and stuff. He then notices Yaosin walking with Nanami while holding hands, making him squeeze the water bottle in anger. But when the ladies ask if something is wrong, he dismisses it. While the two of them put their shoes in the locker, Yaosin apologizes for calling her without giving a proper heads up, even though she isn't really used to boys. He further mentions that he was so excited about Sunday's date that he ended up calling her yesterday. Nanami agrees, saying that she's still not used to them, but Yaosin's call made her really happy. He then notices that Nanami seems to be in a good mood and wonders if it's because of his call, making her glad that he called her. Just then, Nanami realizes that she never told him that she wasn't used to boys, causing Yaosin to freak out, as she indeed never told him, and he ended up hearing it while eavesdropping. Knowing that he needs to get out of this situation, Yaosin reminds her that it's her first time going out with a boy, and considering that it's the first time of someone as cute as Nanami, he figured that she might not be used to boys. Nanami gets flustered hearing the word cute, and Yaosin suggests moving towards their class. On their way, he wonders why Nanami is so bad with boys, as someone as bad as her must get plenty of confessions. He thinks that something bad must have happened to her, and even her friends were worried, which is why Yaosin was particularly chosen as her training partner. Eventually, Nanami apologizes for making him sorry, saying that it's not that big of a deal and mentions that she always has difficulties with boys but can't seem to remember the exact reason. Considering she can't remember, it must not be that important. Additionally, as many schoolboys are desperate for her kitty, she must have developed some difficulties dealing with them. Nanami then reveals that it was around 6th year when she started being scared around boys. Yaosin figures that she must be just as cute back then, and may have seen so many boys that she can't remember the exact reason. Following that, he questions how she knew what he was thinking about, to which Nanami replies that even though it's only been 3 days, she's his girlfriend after all. This makes Yaosin's heart skip a beat, and he begins to wonder what kind of face he should make while telling her that he knows about the punishment game. Nonetheless, he decides not to let her know and unconsciously ends up ogling at those Pokemon balls on her chest. However, she notices him having a staring competition with her jugs and hides them, thinking of Yaosin as a perv. Yaosin begins to freak out and starts apologizing, telling her that he had no ill intentions. But Nanami lets him know that she really hates guys' hazes, making his soul leave his body. But to Yaosin's surprise, she then mentions that it's okay if it's Yaosin, deciding to forgive him this time. He freaks out and thinks that this statement seems pretty unfair. Later that day, they both talked normally and spent the whole day filled with happiness. Eventually, it was time for them to have lunch together and Yaosin was happy to get 2 hamburgers. When Nanami asks if that portion is okay, he lets her know that it's more than enough. Nanami further advises him to open his mouth for her to feed if it's not enough, later getting embarrassed by what she just said. She then apologizes, telling Yaosin to just eat his portion when out of nowhere, a boy appears, asking if he can have a bit of Nanami's time. That guy turns out to be the same person from before and asks Nanami about the guy sitting next to her. Nanami lets that boy named Shiu know that he's being a bit obstinate, while Yaosin begins to think that he knows Shiu as the famous basketball player of their school who, like everyone else, was rejected by Nanami as well. Shiu lets Nanami know that he's not giving him and once again asks Yaosin about who he is. This causes Yaosin to stand up and introduce himself as Nanami's boyfriend, simultaneously thinking that Shiu is huge enough to knock his sorry self down in no time. Even though Yaosin is scared to talk to him, he can't imagine how scared Nanami might be and decides to stand his ground. Shiu mentions that they are attracting quite a lot of attention and suggests moving to the cafeteria. Once they are settled, Yaosin begins eating his lunch in the cafeteria, and when Shiu asks if the bento was made by Nanami, Yaosin starts devouring all the content before Shiu even gets the chance to ask for a single bite. Following that, Yaosin compliments Nanami for her amazing cooking skills, making her glad. Furious, Shiu stands up and challenges Yaosin to a duel, telling him to hand over Nanami if he loses. However, Yaosin straight up refuses to duel with him, making Shiu wonder if Yaosin is running away from a challenge. He further asks if a coward like him is suitable for someone like Nanami. But when he asks Nanami if she thinks the same, she refuses and tells him now to use her first name so casually as the only one who can call her that is her boyfriend. Shiu then asks Nanami if she'd rather be with an average Joe like Yaosin instead of him, such a pathetic man who runs away from challenges. Yaosin then adds that wagering on someone's girlfriend is kind of messed up and tells Shiu that Nanami's feelings come first. He further reminds Shiu that he was already friend-zoned by Nanami, making him even more furious. Lastly, Yaosin tells Shiu that there's nothing in it for him, and that even if Shiu doesn't approve of them, they'll still continue to go out with each other, adding the fact that he is treating Nanami like an object that is why he can't agree to any of this. With that being said, the two of them prepare to leave, but Shiu stops them, asking Nanami what she finds so good about such an insignificant plain boy, saying that he can easily mog Yaosin with his eyes closed. This makes Nanami walk up to Shiu and tell him not to insult her boyfriend, letting him know that Yaosin is a far better person than someone like him, and that she's done dealing with guys like Shiu. This brings Shiu to his knees, causing Yaosin to figure that this seems pretty effective. Nanami further reminds Shiu that he was measuring the radius of her jugs the whole time during the proposal. Additionally, she remembers Yaosin doing the same thing as well but tells Shiu that Yaosin wouldn't do something like that, later sticking out her tongue, forcing him to apologize once again. With that being said, Nanami suggests going away but Shiu tries to stop her once again and almost grabs her arm, only to be stopped by Yaosin at the last second. He then tells Shiu that his being persistent will only make her hate him even more. Ultimately, Shiu gives up on using logic and tells Yaosin to fight him. saying that he's sure Nanami would get it if he wins. However, Yaosin tells Shiu to raise his head as it's not a pretty sight to look at, and when he continues begging Yaosin to have a duel, Yaosin eventually agrees and asks about the kind of duel he wants to have. Shiu suggests having a first to 10 three-pointer competition in basketball, but all Yaosin knows about basketball is what he read from the manga. Nonetheless, he accepts the competition, causing Nanami to ask if he's really okay with this duel. Yaosin replies that Shiu treating Nanami like an object made him quite mad. But Nanami still seems worried that her twig-shaped boyfriend might lose. However, Yaosin reassures her that he'd find a way somehow, and she decides to believe in him as well. Following that, Yaosin tells Shiu that even though he is fine with this duel, he is still a beginner and wants Shiu to get 3 handicaps. But Shiu is confident that whatever the handicap might be, there's no way he'd ever lose in basketball. Later in the basketball court, Hatsumi and Ayumi appear, asking about the commotion in the gym and if she knows what's going on. But before Nanami can say anything, the screams of girls simping for Shiu interrupts her. Yaosin also seems a bit nervous as it has turned into a big event. Nanami then notices Yaosin in his basketball fit and runs across Shiu, completely ignoring him. Her friends also join her, asking Yaosin if he's planning to join the basketball club. They then notice the guns on his arm and begin complimenting his body, which is something Nanami doesn't really appreciate. She then gets between the two of them and mentions that they are staring at Yaosin a bit too much. This comes as a surprise to both of them, and they end up laughing, reassuring her that no one is stealing Yaosin from her. Yaosin then informs them that Shiu challenged him to a match with Nanami as the prize. When Hatsumi asks how he's going to deal with it, Yaosin lets them know about the handicap, that being Shiu teaching him the basics and letting him show 20 of his shots as an example. Afterward, Shiu teaches him the correct way of holding the ball along with the proper positioning he needs to have in order to score a point. Ayumi then asks him about the second handicap, and Yaosin explains that if he scores even once, it's his win, and if Shiu manages to score 8 times, he wins. However, Hatsumi is still doubtful if Yaosin can win with these terms, and Yaosin adds that the third handicap is the most important. No matter the outcome of the match, Nanami will be the one to decide who is the winner. This makes the girls wonder if Shiu was really okay with it, to which Yaosin replies that he was okay as long as Nanami is the one choosing. Ayumi mentions that Shiu really thinks that Nanami will choose him, while Hatsumi calls him an idiot if they take away basketball from him. However, Yaosin is aware that it will be all for nothing if Nanami ends up choosing Shiu instead of him. With that being said, the game starts and Shiu asks Yaosin if he's confident, saying that he is sure that Nanami will choose him. Nonetheless, Yaosin prepares to take the first shot, and to everyone's surprise, he manages to score a point. Suddenly, a scream catches his attention, and it turns out to be Nanami, who tells Yaosin that she loves him. With that being said, Yaosin prepares to take his remaining tries, but after remembering what Nanami just said, he ends up missing every other shot apart from the one he made at the start. Now, it's Shiu's turn, and he ends up making all 8 shots, resulting in a draw. Yaosin finds it pretty impressive and wonders what Nanami thinks of him now, but to his surprise, she gives him a hug instead, telling Yaosin that he won. Shiu can't believe that he lost, and when Yaosin asks if he would consider recognizing Nanami as his girlfriend, Shiu can't help but cry due to frustration. Later at home, Yaosin explains everything that happened to Baron, who mentions how there wasn't a need for competition if Nanami was the one deciding in the end. Yaosin says that he's glad Shiu accepted his defeat, to which Baron replies that Nanami wasn't going to get swayed by Shiu in the first place. However, Peach disagrees, saying that Nanami is just toying with Yaosin. She further mentions that girls like her toy with boys, while her friends simply look like they are having fun. Yaosin thanks Peach for worrying about him and lets her know that his girlfriend isn't such a bad girl. Peach apologizes and Yaosin lets her know that he was able to cool off thanks to her. Furthermore, he decides to make more efforts to show Nanami how much he loves her. This catches Peach by surprise, and she decides to log off the game for now. After she leaves, Baron and Yaosin wonder what's wrong with her, and he later advises Yaosin to log out early as well so he can plan out his upcoming date. Later that night, he's busy sliding into the DMs of the hotties on Instagram when he receives a message from Nanami, asking if a kiss on the cheek would be fine as a reward. Even though Yaosin is happy about it, he believes his heart won't be able to handle it. On the other hand, Nanami is taking a bath, and while washing her body, she thinks about all the crazy stuff she said in the spur of the moment. She really wanted to enjoy his reactions, but Yaosin was too cool about it. Furthermore, she thinks that she'd like Shiu to be more like Yaosin as well. Shiu is too true to his desires and doesn't listen to other people. Additionally, he even interrupted one of her few moments together with Yaosin, which is something she doesn't really appreciate. Besides, in comparison, Nanami believes that Yaosin is far kinder and gentler than him. This makes her wonder if Yaosin doesn't want to flirt, as he was unsure about receiving a kiss on his cheeks. Furthermore, Nanami remembers everything he said in school and can't believe he's not embarrassed when she's already read by just thinking about it. She then starts thinking that Yaosin might still want his reward tomorrow, but instead of a kiss on the cheek, he might request it to do it on the lips. Just as she starts freaking out by just thinking about it, her younger sister intervenes if she really likes cheeks that much. Following that, she complains about Nanami taking so long in the bath and grinning non-stop. Ultimately, she told her sister to leave and realizes that she can't stop grinning because from tomorrow, the two of them can finally be together with no one in between. But to her surprise, Shiu once again blesses them with his appearance, complimenting them for being really intimate. Nanami can't believe that this is happening, as she thought she could be alone with Yaosin. In the end, she tells Shiu to leave them alone and starts walking away, but Yaosin agrees to talk to Shiu if he doesn't act the same way he did last time. After thanking Yaosin for giving him a chance, Shiu lets Yaosin know that it is him that he wants to talk to, which catches both of them by surprise. Nanami figures that he doesn't look like he's lying and wonders if switching from her to Yaosin is his way of apologizing. Yaosin then asks what business Shiu has with him, as their match has already ended. With that being said, Shiu decides to get straight to the point and mentions that he'd like to be friends with Yaosin. Surprised, Yaosin asks what he means, to which Shiu replies that Yaosin ended up winning the duel, which made him realize that he's worthy of Nanami, and that he should become friends with Yaosin instead. Yaosin lets Nanami know that he didn't think things would take such a turn, while Shiu continues, saying that he might get a chance to get closer to him. Yaosin mentions that it's hard to hate Shiu when he's asking so frankly, and Nanami whispers into Yaosin's ears, telling him that Shiu is an idiot in everything except for basketball. Her whispering into his ears ends up making Yaosin panic, and after realizing what she just did, Nanami starts freaking out as well. Yaosin then asks Nanami if Shiu was appealing to her maternal instincts, but she corrects him, telling Yaosin that all he did was peek at her basketballs instead of the real ones. Nonetheless, Shiu interrupts their conversation, wanting to get back to the main topic. This results in Yaosin agreeing to become his friend, but lets him know that there's a condition. That being that he will never hand over Yaosin to Shiu. He looks at Yaosin in shock and starts laughing, saying that they go really well with each other and that it's time for him to search for a new baddie to bag. Additionally, this whole situation ends up improving Nanami's impression of Shiu. Following that, he asks Yaosin if he'd be interested in joining the basketball club, and even though Nanami is glad that her boyfriend's efforts are being recognized, she doesn't want him to join, as the time they spend together would decrease. To her surprise, Yaosin ends up rejecting the offer, telling Shiu that he doesn't want to decrease the time he spends with Nanami. This overjoys Nanami, as Yaosin seems to think the same way, and after telling Yaosin to contact him if he changes his mind, Shiu finally walks away. Nanami then mentions that they are finally alone, and mocks him by saying that he must have preferred staying with Shiu. Yaosin apologizes, telling Nanami that he didn't intend on making her uneasy, and reassures her that he'd never let anyone take her away like some sort of prize. This causes Nanami to smile, and lets Yaosin know that his face is bright red, to which he replies that she seems embarrassed as well. Nanami replies that there's not a single woman who wouldn't feel happy about her boyfriend saying such cool lines. With that being said, she grabs his arm, telling him that it's a reward for being so cool yesterday, but mentions that they won't be able to see each other tomorrow. This reminds Yaosin that Nanami has to go watch a movie with her friends, while Nanami hopes that he'll be able to deal with the loneliness. Following that, he lets Nanami know that even though he'll be lonely tomorrow, he'd patiently wait for Sunday, causing Nanami to grab him even tighter, promising to send him a ton of messages tomorrow. Later, Yaosin plays some games with the others and gets told that it's unusual for him to make such mistakes. Yaosin replies that he's going on his first date tomorrow and can't stop thinking about it. Peach advises him to be extra careful tomorrow, causing Yaosin to think that she is finally starting to show support. However, she returns to her usual self and tells Yaosin that Nanami might crush his heart by calling him all kinds of bad stuff. While Baron tells Peach not to say that kind of thing, Yaosin lets them know that he's got everything ready and should be fine. Baron then tells him not to worry about the game and enjoy himself. He further advises Yaosin to escort Nanami properly, which can raise his favorability. This makes Yaosin think that even though being together will make him happy, it could be different for Nanami and decides to be careful. Afterward, Baron asks him about the clothes he'll be wearing on the big day, but Yaosin seems to have no idea. He lets them know that almost all of his clothes are black, and he might have some trousers and jeans lying around. Knowing that he's most likely doomed, Baron then tells him to take a picture of his outfit and show it to Shiu to take his opinion. Later that day, he calls Shiu, asking if he's free right now. Shiu gets happy that Yaosin is already relying on him and asks what he needs. Yaosin asks if he can show him the clothes he'll be wearing on the date, and Shiu agrees to take a quick glance as he's in the middle of his break. This makes Yaosin apologize for bothering Shiu, and he gives Yaosin the heads up that he doesn't have much knowledge either. However, as soon as he sees a picture of Yaosin in a fully blacked out drip, he freaks out. Shiu then questions why Yaosin is covered in pitch black, wondering if he's some sort of wannabe ninja. Additionally, he asks if all of his clothes are like that, to which Yaosin agrees. In the end, Yaosin gets yelled at by Shiu, who advises him to go buy something else immediately. With that being said, Yaosin is on his way to the clothing store, thinking that his outfit must be horrible for Shiu to get this mad. Furthermore, he's relieved that Peach and Baron noticed, but after listening to their feedback, he's starting to become conscious of people's gazes. Finally, realizing that this is what it feels like to have no clothes, he regrets telling Baron that he had everything ready. Ultimately, he arrives at the shopping mall where he'll be going with Nanami to get somewhat of an advantage. Nonetheless, he enters the shopping mall and notices that this place doesn't exist solely to play around. But after noticing the price tag having the same number of digits as his mom's weight, he realizes that clothes are much more expensive than he thought. Additionally, he doesn't have a part-time job, so spending his own money hurts. Now, he's starting to regret not having a part-time job and realizes that Nanami doesn't seem to have a part-time job either. Furthermore, he thinks how he'd love to work part-time together with Nanami, but is totally aware that he'd be constantly making mistakes while staring at her honkers. Soon after, he tries on some clothes and listening to Shiu's advice, who told him to keep the black jeans and buy a new top. He sends a picture of his drip to Shiu, who luckily ends up liking it. After he's done buying clothes, he figures that this is about as much help as Baron and Peach can offer, as they are dealing with a baddie like Nanami after all. Yaosin then begins to think that he should take Nanami to a zoo instead with how things are going, but with these new clothes, he's all set for tomorrow. Just then, he notices Hatsumi and Ayumi standing nearby, which makes him wonder why they aren't at the movie theater. Apparently, they are trying to deal with some playboys who are trying to hit on them. While those boys reassure Hatsumi and the others that their boyfriends won't find out, Yaosin thinks that it's not surprising considering their flashy appearances. Hatsumi then lets them know that it's not about being found out, but the boys keep pressuring that they're both a group of three, which makes it perfect. Yaosin begins to wonder who is the third girl he's talking about and notices Nanami with glasses standing behind the two of them. However, Yaosin doesn't seem to figure out that the third girl is actually Nanami. Nonetheless, both Hatsumi and Ayumi continue telling the boys to stop as they all have boyfriends already. But that boy stays persistent, reassuring Hatsumi that her boyfriend won't find out. Yaosin wonders if they are getting hit on and can't recognize the third girl as her outfits look pretty mature and tidy. He begins to think that Nanami might have gone back and that they could have added another person in their group. However, he is aware that he needs to do something to save them, but is sure that those playboys aren't the type to hear him out, but suddenly, an idea pops in his mind. As the argument between Hatsumi and those boys continue, Hatsumi almost loses her cool when Yaosin interrupts, saying that it's quite a coincidence that the three of them came there as well. He then questions if those boys are their friends, causing one of them to mock Yaosin for butting in. Furthermore, he roasts Yaosin for looking like the discount version of John Wick, causing Yaosin to get depressed. Following that, he notices the mature-looking girl and figures that she looks really anxious. Additionally, he notices that he has seen her eyes before and decides to go with his initial plan. With that being said, Yaosin lets those boys know that he is the boyfriend of that girl, saying that it's natural for him to stop this. While Nanami gets all flustered, the boys begin laughing and mocking Yaosin for choosing the plainest girl known to mankind. Nonetheless, Yaosin reminds them that the girls already told them that they don't want to, so he can't leave her friends alone. This results in that guy grabbing Yaosin's jacket, threatening to take his girlfriend to Pound Town if he doesn't stop. But just then, someone grabs that boy's shoulder, and that person turns out to be the mall's security, asking what he thinks he's doing. He then tells that boy to come with them as he seems to be disturbing the other customers. That guy tries to explain that he isn't doing anything weird when suddenly Yaosin interrupts, telling them that he is clearly assaulting him, asking them to call the police. That guy begins yelling at Yaosin that he hasn't done no such thing, but Yaosin explains that grabbing someone like that is considered assault. As the situation begins to escalate, that guy's friends start getting anxious and noticing that Yaosin asks them if they are fine with being charged for the same crime. They instantly betray his friend, telling the guard that they were just following along and that he is the one who told them to get on girls. Before wasting any time, the two of them make a run for it, leaving their friend alone, causing him to wonder when they become so cruel. Yaosin agrees and tells him that those two did nothing, which makes that guy even more furious, but he's forced to stop due to the guards standing behind him. Eventually, he lets go of Yaosin and is taken away by the security. Afterward, Hatsumi and Ayumi thank Yaosin for saving them and giving him a soda can as a reward. Hatsumi also mentions that they would have taken them down if it became dangerous, which makes Yaosin wonder if she's that strong. Hatsumi mentions that she always gets hit on considering the airbags on her chest and was trained by her big bro, or some might say boyfriend. Puzzled, Yaosin asks her what she means by big bro, and Ayumi lets him know that Hatsumi's stepbrother ended up being her boyfriend. Apparently, her brother is the famous martial artist named Otofuke. Yaosin freaks out after hearing that she is dating her brother, but gets told by Hatsumi that they are not related by blood and could even marry if they want to. He then notices that Hatsumi looks very much like the girls from romance manga. He then asks if he did something unnecessary, but gets told that he really helped, as if she came back. Even with a single scratch, her boyfriend would start asking to escort her everywhere. Ayumi then adds that they shouldn't underestimate Yaosin either and tells Nanami to join the conversation as well. Yaosin realizes that he was right about that girl being Nanami, as he could never mistake those beautiful eyes. He then asks Nanami if she's alright, to which she agrees and thanks him for recognizing her even in this outfit. While Yaosin wonders if she's so nervous because she was getting hit on, Nanami further informs him that she enjoys gal fashion but likes these sorts of normal things as well. She believes that he must be disappointed seeing her in such a plain form, but Yaosin replies that this looks super cute on her and lets her know that the gloomy roach fit he's rocking is what one calls a bad outfit. This causes the other two to crack up, but they reassure Yaosin that he did pretty well, noticing, as things would have turned out differently if he hadn't. Yaosin replies that due to her glasses, he first thought that it could be Nanami's sister, but the moment he saw her eyes, he instantly realized that it was none other than Nanami. Hatsumi then begins teasing Nanami, but Yaosin mentions that he wasn't sure until those two called her name. He then asks Nanami if she's disappointed, but gets told that she's glad that Yaosin is a kind person who goes out of his way to help people. Noticing that she is starting to feel excited, Hatsumi suggests going on a date, but Yaosin refuses, saying that today is meant for the three of them to enjoy, and informs them that he came to buy new clothes for the date. Nanami can't believe that he came to buy new clothes just for the date, and Yaosin mentions that he could never wear this next to her. When Nanami tries to refuse, Ayumi tells her to let him look good, and with that being said, the three of them walk away. But before leaving, Nanami asks which version of her he wants to see tomorrow, and Yaosin replies that he'll be happy no matter whatever she wears. Eventually, it's Sunday and the two of them meet up for their very first date. Yaosin decides to properly thank Baron, as his outfit from before was a total disaster, and he knows he needs to be better if he wants to stand by her side. Following that, Nanami asks if this outfit looks good on her, which reminds him that he forgot to compliment her first. Nonetheless, he lets Nanami know that the outfit looks really cute on her. This causes her to smile and tell Yaosin that she already knows, followed by her walking away with a bright smile on her face. After arriving at the theater, Yaosin asks if he'll be okay considering he hasn't seen the prequels of this movie, and Nanami agrees, saying that she got into it midway as well. He then finds out that there are more than 20 prequels of the movie, something he can't catch up to in only 2 days. Furthermore, Nanami mentions that they can watch it together if he gets hooked, later joking that she'll still love to watch it together even if he doesn't like it. This makes Yaosin think that a month might be too short for it and wonders why she is going so far for a punishment game. She then asks if he prefers watching movies alone, and he disagrees, deciding to focus on the date instead of getting depressed. He then lets her know that it'd be hard to get into it with them being alone, and mentions that as there's a lot of those movies, it might take them over a month to finish them. This catches her by surprise and Yaosin realizes that he got carried away thinking about the punishment game. However, Nanami lets him know that even if it takes a long time, they'll still be together by the time they finish. This makes Yaosin question what they will do once they are finished, to which Nanami replies that it's fine and not like anything will change between them. Furthermore, she tells Yaosin that they are always releasing stuff and will be releasing something next year as well. This makes Yaosin figure that they'll always be together, and after hearing this statement, Nanami asks if he really never had a girlfriend, as from returning the favor and buying new clothes, he seems used to it. Yaosin instantly refuses and shamefully admits that he was planning on coming there with an all-black outfit, but Shiu knocked some sense into him by calling him a ninja. Nanami jokingly asks if he saved them yesterday with her ninja moves, and Yaosin replies that he would have come to her rescue in a flashier way if he was a ninja. After arriving at their seats, Nanami asks if he really doesn't want her to pay at least half, and Yaosin agrees, saying that it's thanks to her for making all those bentos. He then mentions that it wouldn't be a payback if he makes her pay as well, and starts thinking that he intends to pay for everything in the first place. Soon after, when the movie is about to start, Yaosin looks at Nanami and lets her know that he's looking forward to it, and she agrees, while all Yaosin thinks is how beautiful she looks. After the movie starts, they both get impressed seeing the romance between the dollar store Captain America and his baddie. Before long, things start escalating and the two of them start getting closer. Yaosin starts to notice that this is not just a confession, and at this rate, cheeks might get clapped as well. At the same time, he begins to wonder what Nanami looks like right now, and coincidentally, both of them end up looking at each other. She mentions that it's kind of embarrassing, which makes him laugh, as it's obvious for Nanami to think something like that. She then puts her hand on his, catching him by surprise. Due to embarrassment, she instantly takes her hand away, but ends up putting it on his hand once again. After the movie ends, Nanami mentions that this is what being on the edge of your seat is like, and starts commenting on how touching the last scene was. Yaosin mentions that he didn't get a few scenes, and when Nanami agrees to this, Yaosin replies that he didn't expect it, as she seemed to have enjoyed it. This makes Nanami question if he was watching her instead of the movie, and realizing that he's been found out, he confesses that his eyes were wandering off because of how close they were. With that being said, he suggests grabbing some food after doing some window shopping. However, they find out that all the restaurants are closed, as it's already pretty late. When Nanami asks him about dinner, Yaosin informs her that he might get something delivered as his parents are away. Nanami mentions that it's pretty unhealthy, to which Yaosin replies that he's not good at cooking and ordering just once should be fine. This causes Nanami to suggest coming to his house and making him dinner. Before long, he finds Nanami at his house, sitting across the table, making gyozas with him. She mentions that she wanted to put the fillings in, but it takes so long to wrap them, so she really appreciates his help. Additionally, Nanami says that making gyozas together makes them look like a married couple, which ends up making Yaosin flustered. But he decides not to get carried away and focuses on wrapping the gyozas. He then takes a look at the gyozas and calls her pretty, which comes as a shock to her. Turns out he is calling the gyozas she made pretty, and Nanami replies that he's doing pretty good compared to her dad, who always ends up overfilling them. Eventually, they decide to fry the gyozas up, and after they are done, Nanami suggests adding some bacon to the sauce. Ultimately, it's time for them to eat, and considering that Yaosin's parents are away, it feels like the two of them are eating as a family. He is really happy that he got to experience this at his own house, and after taking a bite, Yaosin instantly compliments her for making such tasty gyozas. Following that, he gets up to get a second serving, but Nanami ends up taking this role and advises him to eat a lot. After they are done eating, Yaosin offers to walk her back home, saying that he can't let a girl go home alone at this kind of time. With that being said, the two of them are on their way to Nanami's house, holding hands and talking about the gyozas they just made. Yaosin mentions that he really loved cooking together, which is something Nanami seems to appreciate. Eventually, they arrive at her neighborhood when out of nowhere, a giant buff dude appears behind them. Yaosin gets freaked out and tries protecting Nanami, and quickly realizes that Shiu's height and muscles are nothing compared to his. But before anything happens, Nanami ends up calling that person her dad, while he questions her about the boy next to her. Following that, the two of them end up going to Nanami's house. Both her mother and little sister are surprised to see her bring a boy home for the first time. Yaosin, also seeing her mother and sister for the first time, notices that they look similar to Nanami as well. Her sister then mentions that Yaosin is a perfect fit for her, considering how dull and non-violent he seems. Nanami questions why they are acting this way as she hasn't said anything, to which her mother replies that she always looked happy making those bentos, while her sister mentions that she never puts makeup on when she goes to her friend's house. Nanami can't believe they noticed that and tell them to stop. Just then, her father enters the house, telling them to give Nanami a break and ask Yaosin and Nanami to come with him. Both her mother and sister are surprised to see her mother with the two of them, and before anything happens, Yaosin apologizes for bringing their daughter back home so late and takes all the responsibility, asking them not to be so harsh with her. But her father decides to settle all of this inside, asking him to leave that sort of talk for later. Yaosin agrees with what he said and decides to finally introduce himself as Nanami's boyfriend. Her mother also introduces herself as Tomoko and her sister as Seiya. Additionally, her father then introduces himself as Genakairu, telling Yaosin that it's nice to meet him. After shaking each other's hand, the three of them sit at the table and explain everything that happened. Genakairu then asks Nanami if she knows why he's angry, and she wonders if it's because she didn't tell them about her boyfriend. But Genakairu refuses and mentions that he's actually delighted to know that she has a boyfriend, given her circumstances. Her mother adds that she thinks the same way, which makes Yaosin think that they more or less recognize them. But when Nanami asks the reason he's mad, Genakairu tells her that it's because she lied to them. The whole punishment game being a lie enters Yaosin's mind, and her father adds that even though he's okay with her lying to go on a date, spending the night at a boy's house is unacceptable. Tomoko also mentions that they would have let her go if she told him about making dinner for Yaosin. But Genakairu can't help but think what freaky stuff could have taken place if she had decided to stay overnight. However, he apologizes for being inappropriate and mentions that nothing makes him happier than his daughter finally getting herself a boyfriend. However, Nanami doesn't buy any of this and tells Genakairu that it's because he always says stuff like that. Genakairu, confused, tells Nanami to calm down, but Nanami mentions that she didn't want to tell him about Yaosin because he always says weird stuff. Genakairu once again asks her to calm down and says that he doesn't recall saying anything about her relationship. This makes Nanami remind Genakairu that he said he won't recognize her boyfriend until they are as strong as him. This catches Yaosin by surprise, and when he asks if he needs to beat her dad, Nanami agrees. Yaosin replies that there's no way for him to beat a barbaric man like Genakairu and wonders what's the point of going so far for a punishment game. Furthermore, he believes that this is the perfect excuse to call it off, but ends up remembering all the stuff they did the past week and all the memories they made. This wakes up the inner Sigma Wolf, causing him to get up and give Nanami a hug, letting her know that he will take on any challenge and won't let them separate. His statement brings tears into her eyes, and she hugs him back while thanking Yaosin. Her mother comments on how jealous she is, reminding Yaosin that he totally forgot about her parents. Following that, Genakairu apologizes and asks if he really said something like that. Nanami gets even more furious and slams her hand on the table. At the same time, Tomoko gets angry as well and asks how Genakairu could not remember the things he said on his own. Terrified, Genakairu explains that he's not trying to play dumb and really doesn't remember when he said that. Nanami reminds him that it happened years ago when Hatsune's brother came to drink with him. Genakairu then thinks hard and finally remembers that he said something similar. However, he let Nanami know that he was only trying to cheer her brother up as he was quite worried about all the boys trying to hit on his sister. So Genakairu told him that if it were him, he'd only recognize them if they could beat him. Nanami questions if he really gave him that advice and Genakairu agrees, saying that there's no way he'd say anything like that about the two of them. Nanami finally calms down and asks if there is no reason for him and Yaosin to fight, and her father swears on his meat armor and his busty wife. He further tells Nanami that he didn't train this hard just to beat people, which comes as a surprise to Yaosin. Genakairu tells Yaosin not to be so formal and call him by his name. Yaosin then questions if isn't some kind of martial artist, but he replies that he's just an average salary man. Yaosin lets Genakairu know that he also trains but can't seem to outgrow his current muscles. Nanami also adds that Yaosin's abs are a bit defined while Genakairu's are more on the bulky side. This causes everyone to become silent, and Nanami is a little late to realize what she just said. Furious, Genakairu asks how his daughter has seen him unclothed and wonders if her field is already cultivated. Nanami instantly refuses, telling them that Yaosin got injured while saving her and she saw them as his uniform got dirty. Luckily, he ends up believing their explanation and tells Nanami that it might end up becoming difficult to trust her if she keeps on piling up small lies. Tomoko then tells Yaosin to keep training as Yaosin really loved seeing her father train. Genikairu then adds that it was Nanami's aversion to boys which made him train so hard and bring out the old album. Tomoko reminds Nanami that she started not feeling well around boys around 6th grade, and her father figures that it must be when he started training as well. They then show Yaosin an old picture of her, and when Genikairu asks if she's cuter than any idol, Yaosin wholeheartedly agrees. He further mentions that Nanami was bullied by the boys in the past due to which an accident occurred. However, Nanami still can't remember anything, and Genikairu says that it's not surprising that she can't remember because of the shock. Since then, Genikairu began training so he could always protect Nanami, but as Nanami's blessed with great friends, her aversion to boys has started to weaken, and now finally, she brought home a boyfriend. Hearing this story motivates Yaosin, and he swears to always protect Nanami from now on, promising to be by her side and never make her sad. With that being said, he requests them to grant them their blessing. While Nanami is flustered to hear this, both Tomoko and Genikairu are really happy to hear his proposal. Luckily, Genikairu agrees to bless his relationship. But Yaosin believes that Nanami must have not liked it as he blurted it out without thinking. But to his surprise, she is still surprised about what he just said. Nonetheless, Yaosin decides to make sure to keep her safe from now on and can't believe that something like that happened on their first date. Following that, he tries talking to Nanami, but she's still shocked, and Genikairu lets him know that it might take her some time to come back to her senses. However, as it's already past midnight, Genikairu decides to drive him home, and Yaosin gladly accepts his offer. Outside, Yaosin once again thanks Genikairu for telling him everything about Nanami, to which he replies that he's the first person they talked to about her past. Yaosin wonders if it's fine as they just met, and Genikairu lets him know that he'd gladly entrust her to someone like him. With that being said, both of them shake each other's hand. While Yaosin thinks that just as Nanami had been hiding the truth, he's not been very honest either. After Yaosin leaves, Nanami checks out the group chat and sees her friends asking about the date, which reminds her how Yaosin was ready to go through such an unreasonable request of fighting her dad. She then starts getting ready to take a bath while continuing to think about what happened. She then wonders if Yaosin really proposed and is aware that her parents were alright with it as well. This makes her think of the two of them getting married after graduation and maybe living together in college. Additionally, she thinks about the type of house they'd live in and how they could go to sleep while cuddling. However, she then remembers what happened last night with her sister, but luckily, Seiya isn't eavesdropping this time. With that being said, Nanami gets out of the bath and receives a call from Yaosin. She lets him know that she just got out of the bath, which catches him by surprise. Nonetheless, he thanked her today as he really enjoyed himself and got to learn a lot about her as well. Nanami also shows her gratitude and asks if they should go out next week as well, to which Yaosin instantly agrees. After they are done talking, Nanami puts on her clothes and gets out to both Seiya and Tomoko, eavesdropping on her. Tomoko tells Nanami that she's making that face again, while Seiya mentions that she really wants a boyfriend like Yaosin. But when Nanami replies that she won't let her have him, Seiya reassures Nanami that she only wants someone like him and not him. Furthermore, she starts teasing Nanami for being head over heels for Nanami. Just then, Tomoko interrupts, asking Seiya to go sleep, but when she tries to argue, Tomoko once again says her name, and this time, Seiya agrees. With that being said, Tomoko and Nanami go to her room as Tomoko wants to hear the whole story about Yaosin. Before long, Nanami begins explaining everything about him saving her from the bucket to the problems they faced with Shibutsu. After she's done, Tomoko asks Nanami to tell her about the beginning, asking who confessed first. But little does she know that Nanami has been avoiding this topic and hesitantly tells Tomoko that she confessed first. Tomoko tells Nanami that she has only talked about the things they did after going out and asks what made her confess. This causes Nanami to have all these thoughts about the punishment game, and Tomoko interrupts, asking if Nanami was thinking about something else when Genikairu told her not to lie. Nanami can't believe she figured it out, and Tomoko reassures Nanami that she's always on her side, asking her to tell the whole story. This brings tears into her eyes, and Nanami starts crying while hugging her mother. She then explains that she did something horrible to Yaosin and informs her everything about the punishment game. This makes Tomoko realize why Nanami only talked about things they did after going out, while Nanami can't help but cry even more. With that being said, Tomoko asks Nanami if she really loves Yaosin right now, to which she instantly agrees, saying that she doesn't feel uneasy or unpleasant when it comes to Yaosin. Tomoko then praises Nanami for telling her everything, and when Nanami asks if she's not angry, she replies that it's for the next time when her friends come over. However, she also advises Nanami to make it right and suggests being honest with Yaosin on their 1-month anniversary. Then he can decide what he wants to do. Nanami also agrees to confess for real this time and wonders if it's fine to wait this long. Tomoko lets her know that she must be scared and should take her time to get ready. Furthermore, she tells Nanami to satisfy any of Yaosin's requests for the month, causing her to blush and tell Tomoko not to put it in such a weird way. Nonetheless, Nanami has now decided to give it her best from now on. How do you think Yaosin might react after hearing the truth from Nanami herself? Comment girlfriend if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in and we'll catch you in the next one.